Hey guys, what's up? It's me, xGalaxi Girlx, and today I'm continuing on how to create a series. In this video, I will be talking all about writing and how to write a series and everything like that. So I have made a video before this. This is the second video I've made on how to create a series. I made a video before this, and it was all about the plot and the characters, and I will leave a link to that video in the description. It's all about how to get the idea, how to create a character, how to outline and things like that. So definitely go check that out and then come back, and this is the second part of creating a series. So let's begin. So writing, when you're creating, I create webkin series. So when creating a webkin series or any series, writing is always an option, but I highly recommend it. And that is because, like, series, when you write them, it's easier to get all of your ideas out. And like when you can improv the scene, and improving is coming up with stuff on the spot. You can take your camera and improv the scene and just go with it. You know, you have a general basic idea, and you can totally do that if that's what you prefer. I did do that before in my earlier series, but eventually I started writing, and it just turns out better at the end, and the whole finished final product is so much better. And when you write, you have a better idea and understanding of where your series is going, and you can connect things between episodes, and it's just better overall. So yeah, you can write on paper or on your computer. I use my computer. I type everything on my computer because it's easier. I'm a very fast typer, and even if you're not a fast typer, I would actually recommend using a computer anyways. But you can use paper if that's what you prefer, because when you use papers get everywhere, and when you use a computer, it's just easier. You all have it in one folder, one document, and everything like that. But when you use papers are everywhere, and erasing lines, and it's just hectic. So I think overall, using a computer and typing it in like Microsoft Word or Google Docs, either one of those are great. Google Docs saves as you write, and Microsoft Word, you have to save it as you go. So like, if you use Microsoft Word, which is what I use, you have to like save constantly, because sometimes you might actually lose your work if you don't save it. Yeah, so I have a huge folder. Last episode I talked about outlining, and outlining is just, getting a basic feel for like writing stuff down for what the episode is going to be about. And I have a huge folder for my outlines, and I write all my outline stuff in there. And usually when I have the folder for outlines, and it's just, the whole folder is absolutely crazy. My outlines are not very organized, and my outlines are a bit crazy. I have things in bold letters and in different colors, and like I color code it. I have things in huge, like 72 font, and things in like tiny letters and like bold, and it's just crazy. It's like crazy madhouse, and that is just really just my folder for all of my ideas, and I just throw it all in there, and I like labeled it ideas for whatever the title of the series is called. Another folder for characters and personalities. I have in the last video I talked about having creating a thing about your characters and your personalities, and I would definitely print that out and have that with you at all times. It should have the list of the names of all the webkins, and like what type of webkins is playing the part of that character, the character's name, and then the personality and what they're like. That definitely should be needed. And then have another folder, so there's 3 folders, one for your outline, one for your characters, and then one that's actually the full actual script. And that's what we're going to be using to write this. So, you should have your outline out, and like if you wrote an outline, you don't always have to write an outline, but if you have an outline, and if you have that out when you're writing your script, to make sure, like, read over it first, make sure you have a general idea of what you're doing, and you can always come back and read it again if you need to rethink it a bit. But, just kind of like go with it and start writing. Really, and if you don't have an outline, you just start writing. You just kind of gotta go for it. Like, you just kind of gotta jump in and do it. I would suggest writing the title of the episode in bold and underlining it. That is the first thing I would recommend doing when you start writing. Before you even start writing, you have to write down the episode. Then after that, you would have write down the location and what is happening in the scene. You can write this in parentheses or in italics, whatever one works for you. So, say the character is asleep in her room, and that's where the scene starts off. I always write down at the very top of each scene where the scene starts off. So, this scene, say, I would write in parentheses or in italics, Veronica is asleep in her bedroom. And you could go into more detail saying like what's going on in the scene, like her alarm is about to go off, she's rushing, she's going to be late for school, stuff like that, to get a better feel for what's going on. So then when you begin writing like dialogue, where characters talk back and forth, I write out the character's name. When it's their first speaking part, I write out the character's full name. And you can do this in bold or just leave it the way it is. Usually if you do it in bold, it's easier to see, or you can have it underlined. And then you can write a dash or a semicolon next to their name, whatever one you prefer. I use dashes. And yeah, you can do that. And then you can write out their line. You know, in most cases in like books and things, you know, they have the things that the characters are going to say, their lines. They have them in like quotations. I don't do that because it's too hard to put a quotation, and the quicker I can type the better, because when I'm like writing, I have so many ideas and I just want to spit them all out on my paper. So I just kind of like just don't have quotations, and I put actions in parentheses. So let me give an example. So I have Veronica dash, and then this is her line, I'll be down in a minute, Mom. And then in parentheses I'll have grabs book bag, and then I'll have her next line, I'm coming. So that's kind of like all one line that I have. And so the action was in parentheses, and then everything else was her line. And I knew the character because I had her, it said Veronica dash. So I knew that was the character that was speaking, and I could have had that underlined or in bold, her name. So yeah, and after a while, writing down the characters' names can get a bit tedious, and I began writing out only their first initial. So instead of writing Veronica, I would write V dash, so Mom, what's for breakfast? So, and then, you know, that's her line. And since the mom speaks back to her, and that would be her first line, I would write out her full name, which is Mom, and then dash, bacon and eggs, and write out her line. You see, there's a pattern going here of this is how I do things. You can do things differently, but this is how I do things. Okay, so then say another character comes into the mix and they have the same name, the same first letter of the name, so you can't really shorten it. But I'm going to show you what I do. So I just say, say in parentheses I have Michael enters kitchen, and then I have the character's name Michael dash, Mom, I have to stay after school today for football practice. And then I would write M for Mom, and then dash, okay Michael, come on, sit down, breakfast is about ready. And then to shorten Michael's name, since his name's a little bit long and it's hard to say, I write out the first like 2 or 3 letters of his name to know the difference between the different M's. So I don't have like the mom is M, and then the son Michael, his name will be M-I-C. I'd shorten it to M-I-C, or I could do M-I, and then I'd be like, and then his line would be, I'd write M-I-C dash, okay. So that's how this is working out. You see where we're going with this? So that's kind of like how you set up a scene and how you write it and how I write things. You can do things differently, but that's how I do it. And when you transition between scenes, so you have one scene that's in the kitchen and then the next scene is going to be at school, you change scenes and change locations and everything like that. I usually put a line, so distinguishing between scenes. And to do this on like a computer or something, you go to a fresh line and you hit the dash key, and then a few times, and then you hit enter, and then it will create a line. So That's fancy. So, and it separates it and it makes it easier to find the beginning and ends of scenes. So, yeah, that's how I set up my story, and once you get going with it, it becomes easier. At the beginning, it kind of gets a little like, I don't know what I'm doing, but once you get a system going and you figure things out, it will become easier, I promise. So now I'm going to talk about content and how to create good and real characters. First thing I want to say is don't stereotype your characters. You're a human being, I hope, and you go around listening to people's conversations all day long, and you talk, and if you don't, when you're writing, and if you don't actually feel like someone in real life would actually say that line, then it's probably not the best line to use. Unless that's totally like what you're going for and you want to make a like silly, over-the-top, dramatic little comedy or something. But if you're like making a drama, a serious drama, you kind of want to have realistic lines. And so write how real people would talk, like with slang and stuff. Your teachers will probably be angry with me for telling you this, but when you're writing dialogue, you want the characters to feel real. Take Hagrid from Harry Potter. If you ever read the Harry Potter books, and you see in the books that the way Hagrid talks is very different from all the other characters, and you just know that's Hagrid by the way he's speaking. And you don't even have to know that Hagrid's speaking because you already know the way he's talking in the book. If you've ever read Harry Potter, you're getting where I'm coming from. So like with slang and stuff, and I'll give an example in a second, but let me say this first. And you should also write down how you want the characters to say a line. If there's something in your head, like you know the character's supposed to be crying through that line, write that in parentheses. Or if the character is out of breath after just running, you should make sure that you write that down. Or if the character is stuttering while talking, or he's talking very quietly or loudly, write it down. So here's my example. I'm going to say for the character Michael, he's going to be talking to his friend Tyler. So this is my example. So to write the line, I would say Michael, or M-I-C to shorten it, dash, hey dude, and then in parentheses I have, calls across room loudly to Tyler. Tyler turns his head, end of parentheses. What you doing later? Want to hang out? So that is the line. So I said, what you doing? So whatcha isn't really a proper word, and doing isn't a proper word either, and wanna isn't a proper word either. So that's what I was talking about with the slang and stuff like that. So it's not like, so it would be way more awkward if I said, hey dude, what are you doing later? No, what are you doing later? Want to hang out? Like, it doesn't sound like a teenager would talk. You see what I'm saying? Maybe if it was a teacher or something, they would have more proper English. But since this is a teenager, it's his English isn't going to be as good as it normally would be instead like a teacher was talking. So instead of saying, hey dude, the teacher might be more proper. You see what I'm saying? It just depends on who the character is. And then when I was talking about the parentheses and talking about how to add the characters and what they are saying in the line, like how you want them to say it. So I said calls loudly across the room. So loudly is I want him to say, hey dude, like really loudly. That's what I'm talking about. And then I also added an action saying Tyler turns his head. So I added like a comma, and I said Tyler turns his head. So the other character, Tyler, turns his head to look at Michael, and then Michael continues with saying, what you doing later, want to hang out? So that's kind of, you see where I'm coming from here? So yeah, in the last episode, I was talking about the plot and the characters, and I told you to write down all the characters and their personalities, and that will come in handy right about now. You know, you just kind of like got to take their characters and their personalities and fit that into the writing. Maybe a teenager does talk very proper, and that's kind of like, you know, it just depends on who it is, and, you know, you want all the characters to be different, and you should already have that all down in your chart that you made, and you know, just begin writing and see where it goes. And the beauty of writing is that you can always go back and change it. So just let your mind flow and just write. And less, of course, you get writer's block, which it does happen, and it really happens to the best of us. You want to continue your story, but you don't know where to take it, or you have an idea of where it could go, but you don't like that idea, and you know you can create something so much better. Take a break and step away and come back later. Do not stress yourself out. Just take a chill pill and chill, guys. Writer's block always happens to me, and I sometimes take I used to take breaks for like a week or two, just trying to recollect myself and take a break because I couldn't think of what to write next. And if you do come up with an idea, make sure you write it down, and then kind of like build off of that. And yeah, so really just kind of like take a break, and it will come back to you. You just kind of like gotta chill for a little bit and then come back to it and try working it out. But don't get angry or upset about it if you can't come up with something, because it always happens to me too. So also when you write, I have learned in the past not to make scenes too extremely long. And you don't want to make them too short either. But you don't want to, I say the best times for like a series or things is about 6 to 10 minutes is a good, maybe 6 to 12 minutes is about a good like point of when you're done filming and editing and everything, and that's like a good point. But I sometimes very much, a lot of the times I go over that limit, but with, in like season 1 of my series, The Weight of Us, I went way over, like one episode was like 25 minutes long, and I was like, whoa, this is way too long. And some, like, before I had episodes like 3 minutes long, and I felt like that was too short, and it didn't have enough information in it, and it was just kind of like there, and it was kind of like a waste of an episode, and I should have had more to it. So I'd say when you are writing, and when you're typing and stuff, and when you're typing in 11 font, like I have 11 as my font, that's what I write in, and I keep each scene to about 2.5 page limit. If one scene, like if they're in a kitchen for one scene for about 2.5 pages, just dialogue, talking and stuff, I say like that's about the limit, or 3 at the most, because you don't want it to be one scene to be too extremely long because the audience starts to get bored with it. And yeah, so when writing, it all really depends on what's going on in the scene, but what I have learned is that about a 5 to 6 page episode can end up being anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes long, maybe even over that, and it really all depends on the content. So if you have a lot of action going on in your scene, if you have like a fight scene or a big crowd scene or anything with lots of actions, it takes much longer than it does when there is plain just dialogue. Dialogue takes up a lot less space. It still takes up time, but it takes up a lot less space than action does when you're actually filming. And a 3 to 4 page episode ends up about being 6 to 10 minutes long. So in my new series, I have My Weight of Us season 2. I try keeping episodes between 3 to 4 pages, but sometimes they did go up to 5 or 6 pages. But most of the episodes in my season 2 of The Weight of Us are about 3 to 4, and when I wrote season 1, a lot of the episodes were about 5 to 6 pages. So I'm trying to make the episodes easier for me to film and also easier for people to watch, because I know some people don't like really sitting there for a long time watching. So yeah, that's what I'm saying about that. So I'm just going to say this now. Actions are very important when writing. This is a way for when you're filming to look and see what you were thinking when you were writing it, because sometimes when you're filming, when you're writing, you have 2 different ideas, and you want to make sure when you are writing it, you make sure yourself in the future remembers what you wanted to wanted to do in the past. And you can always change it when you actually film it if you have a different idea, but just make sure you write down the actions to begin with, because you may really like that idea and you may forget later on. And so like if a character turns to look at another character, write that down. If a character like raises a gun, write that down, because when I write and a character like picks up a gun but I don't write it down, and then 3 lines later he fires a gun, and I'm filming that scene and I'm so confused because I'm like, wait, I thought where did he get that gun from? Like he just materialized out of nowhere, and I was like, oh yeah, he was supposed to go pick that up earlier. So I have to like kind of like remember that. So that's why I have to write that down. But also actions are very important. You don't want to over have actions, because that can become very like, for you it can become very stressful, and to the audience it can be like too much, and too much is going on. But you do want to have actions, because to the audience it can get boring if your characters are just sitting there talking back and forth to each other. So do have actions, and it will make it look, it will add to your story if you have actions. And then after you finish writing an episode or something, after the end of finishing a scene or finishing an episode, reread it. Just always reread it, because you will find mistakes, you will find things that you want to change, and it just is very good to reread it. And like if you write one episode and then you come back, say a week later, and try to write the next episode, I always reread the episode I just wrote to remember what I was talking about and remember what was happening, just to make sure I get the feel for the environment all over again and what's happening. Try to have a schedule for writing. You know, don't like stress yourself out and be all like, oh my god, like you have to have deadlines or anything. But you know, try to say, oh, I'll write an episode about every week or so. But you know, if you miss a week or two, that's completely fine. You know, don't stress yourself out, but try to keep to a schedule and try to be like, oh, I'm going to write an episode this weekend. Oh, maybe if I have time, I'll write 2. Who knows? And if I have writer's block, then, oh, well, you know, I'm trying to figure it out. Try to work on it a little bit. So yeah, I talked about folders and staying organized earlier. I have a folder where I keep all of my script. I print everything out when I go to film, and I print everything off my computer when I go to film, like my script and everything. And then I have a folder that I keep all the scripts in. Final thing I want to say is, like, you know, overall, you get my point. Write characters who seem real, have actions. Don't write too much or too little per episode, and if you get stuck, take a break and come back. When you're writing, find a way that works for you and stick to it. You know, and the main point is have fun and don't make a project of it. Writing is my absolute favorite step in the process of creating a series, because it's the process of where I get to, it's the part where you're discovering your own story and you're writing it and you're creating it in that moment. And it's like, when you're writing, I just kind of like, when I don't have an outline and I'm writing and I don't know what's going to happen and I'm just writing and then like I kill a character and I'm just like, what just happened? So it's like I get shocked and I get, you know, and you know you're doing something right when you begin feeling for your characters and start caring what's happening to them. And, you know, it's just, it becomes very important when you start feeling what is happening to them. And, you know you're doing something right, especially when you begin crying over, like, a death of your character, or when your character begins feeling, like, when your character's crying, you begin crying, and then it's like, wow, you're crying over your own fictional characters. You know you're doing something right there. So, that's all I have to say about writing. I hope this helped a lot. And if you have any more questions about writing, please do ask me in the comments, and I will be sure to answer them. The next video, I will be talking about filming and acting and things like that. So, stay tuned for that. That should be up, hopefully, in the next week or so. So, yeah, I guess I will talk to you guys next time. Love you all. Have a supercalifragilistic day. And bye!